Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. It is a Friday edition of the show. We obviously had to shuffle some things around this week, given Hurricane Milton coming to Tampa, and we seriously hope everybody is safe and okay and didn't suffer too much damage from the hurricane that hit this week. So that's why we're doing a Friday show. We got to talk about the return of Calijah Kancey, plus much other injury news and things to look forward to for Bucs versus Saints. So I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is my fellow colleague and the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com, SR Scott Reynolds. Scott, a little bit of a whack-a-mole situation with this Bucs injury report. You know, you get one starter back and then another starter's out. You get an offensive lineman back, but this offensive lineman's out. Same at wide receiver. So the injury bug's not totally gone. Some good news with it, but then also missing some other players.
Yeah, let's kind of dive into that injury news because when we talked about doing the show this morning, Matt, you and I had a feeling that there's going to be a lot of moving and shaking when it comes to the injury situation for the Buccaneers, good and bad, based upon what we had seen, especially from Thursday's injury report, when you looked at guys like Graham Barton not practicing 2 days in a row with a hamstring injury. And sure enough, Graham Barton is ruled out for Sunday's game. That means Robert Hainsey will take over at center. And, you know, Hainsey doesn't have a lot of huge fans, right? I mean, and he was kind of considered maybe the weak link of the offensive line over the last couple of years, he and the left guard, whether it be Matt Filer or Aaron Stinney. But I'll tell you what, Robert Hainsey is a 2-year starter that has gone wire to wire for the Buccaneers, helped them win a couple of NFC South titles. And he's probably the best backup center in the league. You know, I don't study everybody's roster, but really he's kind of a co-starter. It's like if you have a quarterback situation where, you know, you've got a center who's out, like we're seeing now with Graham Barton, and then you've got a guy that can come in who already has some familiarity, snapping the ball to Baker Mayfield and Robert Hainsey. It just, this is the best case scenario for Tampa Bay. I mean, having someone who's got the experience, who's got the chemistry with guys like Cody Malk, and even playing in the preseason next to Ben Bredesen. This is a nice save for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I think the Bucs are well equipped to go with Robert Hainsey. Like, obviously, you'd rather have Graham Barton in there in this type of situation where you have your full starting offensive line. But I think Bucs fans would make the trade of having Luke Gedeke but losing Graham Barton in this situation if it meant that Luke Gedeke was coming back. So overall, yeah, I mean, Hainsey, I feel fine with. I feel comfortable with. I think this is something that even going back to, you know, right after they drafted Graham Barton, it's like, okay, Barton is the starter, but if something happens to him, you feel pretty good about Hainsey starting for a game or two. You obviously don't want this to be a long-term thing, but for 1 week, a spot start, I don't think it's too much of an issue for the Buccaneers, kind of given how it's early in the year and Graham Barton is still, you know, kind of trying to figure out everything in the league. So, yeah, Hainsey, I don't think there'll be too much of a drop-off.
I agree. And the interesting thing here is Graham Barton coming off his worst game so far. And he's been okay. He's had his ups and downs as a rookie center. And keep in mind, too, you look at the fact that he was a left tackle at Duke. He's making a transition. That's why I think you can sit there and honestly say, you know, Zach Frazier at Pittsburgh's probably been a better rookie center because he played center at West Virginia, right? It doesn't mean that Graham Barton's not going to be a good center. It just means he's got a little bit more of a learning curve making the transition from left tackle to center, where he only played center for 5 games as a true freshman back in 2020. Maybe this is a good thing, like a blessing in disguise. He gets to sit back and watch a little bit. We saw how the game started to kind of compound and wear on Luke Gedeke when he made that transition from right tackle at Central Michigan to left guard in the NFL, and it kind of started to compound a little bit. And then, you know, and he had an injury and then was replaced at left guard. I don't think the Buccaneers want to replace Graham Barton. They're very high on him. But you know what? The next time we saw Luke Gedeke later that year, it was that Week 18 start at right tackle. where he played a great game, looked so much more improved and comfortable. Just having that time to kind of sit back and the pressure's off and watch and learn. And that catapulted him to become the starting right tackle the next year, which was last season. So Graham Barton's going to eventually, when he gets healthy, retake that starting center position. They drafted him to replace Hainsey for a reason, right? But in the interim, having a week off and sitting back and watching, and that might be a little bit of a blessing in disguise for him as his rookie season progresses.
Yeah, it lets him recalibrate, get a look at the game in a different way, but also knowing like he's not getting benched. He's not, they're not making him play less because of his performance throughout the first 5 games of the season. It's just kind of like you never want an injury to happen, but hey, like you rest up, let Robert Hainsey take over for a game. Maybe he'll pick up something from what Robert Hainsey does or how he kind of commands the offensive line, and then let him go back in and kind of figure it out. Because also, let's remember they went up against some good defenses. Like the Saints have a pretty good defense. The Falcons obviously revamped their unit this year. So they're going to need Graham Barton for the long haul and maybe getting a little bit of a break against a tough team and what's going to be a very difficult environment. It kind of equips Robert Hainsey a little bit more than maybe it would Graham Barton for this type of situation.
It's a loud, noisy environment in the Superdome. Listen, the Saints right now, they're desperate, Matt. They are backed into a corner. They lost 3 straight. They are 1-1 in the division because they did get a win in week 1 against the Panthers. They lost to the Falcons. They can't afford to lose 4 games in a row now, and they can't afford to be 1-2 in the division. Tampa Bay, 3-2. I'm not saying they're playing with house money anymore. Maybe that would have been the case if they'd won in Atlanta and gotten up 1-0 in the division. But Tampa Bay does not want to be 0-2 in this division. They want to recapture that NFC South lead and win this division for a 4th year in a row. So there's a lot at stake in this game. But this is a situation where Robert Hainsey he's been a starter there for the past 2 years in New Orleans, and he's dealt with that crowd and made those communication calls. And so maybe this is the best case scenario for the Buccaneers, having that experienced guy at center for them and Robert Hainsey. But he's not the only guy that's going to be in the lineup. There are a couple of returning guys. You mentioned Luke Gedeke is one of those. Calijah Kancey is another. And it sounds like Jalen McMillan is also going to be in play this week, and possibly Antoine Winfield Jr., Matt.
Yeah, Antoine Winfield Jr. to me was the most surprising out of all of it because Gedeke had been practicing. He'd been out there. It's really just a matter of like, can he pass concussion protocol? And Kancey had been practicing in full this week, so you can kind of put the dots together on that one. But Winfield, like even with him limited on the injury report, like the whole week, again, we're not there in New Orleans right now, but like last week I was at practice and I watched Antoine Winfield Jr. like warm up and use elastic bands and stuff like that. And again, I'm not a doctor. I don't have a medical degree, but he did not look like a guy that was going to suit up a week later just based on his movements and how he was walking. Now, he wasn't limping or anything like that, but it didn't also look like he was going at full speed or anything. So I guess an extra week made all of the difference. And, Bowles talking last week and even up to this week, he kind of indicated that Kancey was going to be back soon and indicated that Gedeke was close. But Winfield, there wasn't really too much confidence in terms of his return. Obviously, when he does play, the Bucs have all the confidence in the world. But it becomes even bigger. Now, don't get me wrong. Antoine Winfield Jr. is arguably the most important player on this Bucs defense. He's an all-pro safety. He's one of the best players in the league. Him being on the field is always going to be important, especially what he did in that Saints game last year in New Orleans. But now you compound that with Christian Izien being out, the guy that was backing up Antoine Winfield Jr. in the first place. I know he's a game-time decision for Winfield, but they kind of need him now, especially with Jordan Whitehead. It looks like he's going to play, but he's a guy that has kind of gotten injured in games before, and that could kind of flare up at any moment. So now Kayvon Merriweather becomes that much more important. Tyke Smith in the slot. But, man, if they can get Winfield back, what a difference that makes, especially against a rookie quarterback.
It's going to be interesting to see how Todd Bowles and Jason Light handle their roster on Saturday, because they can only bring up a couple guys from the practice squad in terms of the elevations. One of those guys seems like it's going to be Ryan Miller, because Cameron Johnson has got an injured foot, I believe. And then you've got, even though Jalen McMillan will be in play this week, a hamstring injury can flare up at any time, right? So they're counting on McMillan, but we've seen that happen before, where a guy comes in and plays and tweaks that hamstring again and he's done. So they've got to be a little cautious about that, because they only have really 3 truly healthy wide receivers in Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Sterling Shepard. Then you've got Cameron Johnson, who's on the bubble, Trey Palmer, who's going to be out with a concussion, as well as having Jalen McMillan with that hamstring. Expected to play, but again, you have to safeguard yourself and make sure you have a guy. So I would suspect Ryan Miller is a practice squad elevation. The other elevation they might do is one of the safeties, because you've got 2 banged up safeties. Again, any particular play, that foot injury could flare up for Winfield. I think what Whitehead's dealing with the groin injury as well. So
yes,
you've got some, and with Dizzy and out now, that leaves you with Tavir Thomas and Kayvon Merriweather as the only safeties backing them up. So you might see Rashad Wisdom or Marcus Banks, one of those practice squad safeties, elevate, not just to help them on defense, but also in special teams. So I'm curious to see that. And we've talked about this with Todd Bowles. We mentioned it today because we talked about it with him in the press conference via Zoom. Todd Bowles does have a dime defensive package in there. Yeah. KJ Britt has been suspect in pass coverage. Certainly that was the case in Atlanta. And Bowles has platooned KJ on those 3rd and long or obvious passing downs. Last year with Devin White, this year with Servacia Dennis. Dennis is on injured reserve. Could J.J. Russell be in play? He didn't really rule that in or out, said that's an option, but also said the dime might be an option too, Matt. But they got to have enough healthy safeties to be able to put 3 on the field together to be able to play dime and get KJ Britt off the field on passing downs.
Yeah, I'm sure Todd Bowles is not directly angry at Christian Isium, but I'm sure he's just angry like, I finally have the dime in place.
Right.
And then now
it's
Christian
like whack-a-mole, like you said.
Yeah, it really is whack-a-mole. Like Winfield's back. Isium's out.
Yeah.
Geddeke's back. Barton's out. Like just over and over and over again. And yeah, receiver, I mean, they are rail thin. Like Cameron Johnson has been ruled out for this game. Yeah. So that's no Johnson, no Trey Palmer. Like you said, the hamstring injury to Jalen McMillan. I think it's a good question right now. Like for Sunday's game, does Jalen McMillan immediately take back wide receiver 3, or do they stick with Sterling Shepard at least for this week? 1, because of the injury situation with Jalen McMillan, but 2, what Sterling Shepard has brought, over the last 2 games when he's kind of been elevated to wide receiver 3 based on the Bucs didn't really have many other options. So one of those practice squad elevations has to be wide receiver, or else, you're going to have 3 wide receivers, 1 injured wide receiver who's dressing, and then 1. So receiver has to be one of it, and we'll see what they do after it. But yeah, I'm curious about that matchup specifically with Shepard and McMillan. We talked about it on our Pewter Insider a little bit, but now that McMillan is available, I think changes it a little bit.
I think I would still stick with Sterling Shepard as wide receiver 3 this week and put McMillan on a pitch count. Let him be the sub that kind of comes in when you need a breather, a rest for Evans or Godwin or for Shepard, just because you don't want that hamstring to flare up again. Then all of a sudden he's out next week and this team doesn't know if Trey Palmer is going to be available. The good news for Tampa Bay is, again, after this week, their next game is a Monday night game at home against the Ravens, right? So they're going to have that extra day to kind of rest and recover. They had the 10 days off between now and in this game, coming off of that Falcons game. So they have that extra rest day, and it is a home game on Monday night. So it's really almost 2 days. You have Sunday to recover because there's no game after this one, and then you've got Monday all day until the night to recover. So maybe the Buccaneers will have some more reinforcements for next week against the Ravens if they can stay healthy and not lose any more bodies, because that's been the case every game, man.
And speaking of potentially losing another body, thanks to Paul Bowen for this $1.99 super chat. He says, what's the word on Rachaad White? Well, Rashad White has been on the injury list with a foot injury.
Yeah.
While he was limited on Wednesday, he did not practice Thursday or today. He is listed as doubtful for this game. So not probable that Rashad White is going to be available. We talked about him looking kind of slow in that Thursday night game against the Falcons. So he's probably playing through the injury then or got injured, during that game. But with Rashad White out, that means a lot of Bucky Irving. Sean Tucker is going to get an opportunity. Low-key 3223 keeps saying Buck and Tuck. That's a good little nickname there. But
yeah,
I don't know. I feel weird about this one because on the one hand, they still do need Rashad White. But on the other hand, we've been calling for Bucky Irving to get the football more and for Bucky Irving to kind of be the mainstay as the main rusher with this rushing attack. And well, we're going to get it just based on Rashad White not being available.
Yeah, and where this could really show up in a negative way for the Buccaneers, not just the production that Rashad White, exactly, Huzo, you read my mind. Huzo A13, damn, no Rashad, that would definitely hurt the pass protection. Rashad White's the best pass protector out of all the running backs in this team. It's part of the reason why Sean Tucker didn't get a lot of carries last year. It's because he was behind in terms of his pass protection. That's not uncommon for being a running back who is not part of the passing game. And Tucker, was involved a little bit in terms of a receiver at Syracuse, but pass protection, it's always an issue for rookie running backs coming in to earn the trust of those coaches by being able to stick your nose in there and pass protect effectively. You got to protect the $100 million man, Baker Mayfield. That's something Rashad White does really, really well. And we'll see if Bucky Irving, Sean Tucker can step up in that way if Rashad White is not able to go. And if he is able to go, Matt, he's going to be limited in terms of his touches and carries. And I wouldn't be surprised if they stick him in there on passing downs, especially. It might be a little bit of a tell, but just to pass protect more than anything, because that's really where he might have the best value helping this Buccaneer team. Because Dennis Allen will be, whether it's Bucky Irving or Sean Tucker, bringing Demario Davis down, sticking him in that A gap and making whoever's back there pass protect. And Alontae Taylor, the nickel corner, is still the leading Saints sacker this year with 3.5. He had 3 sacks against Bryce Young in the season opener for the Saints. And he's a dangerous guy, not just in coverage, but also blitzing off the edge from the slot.
Yeah, it could be another pitch count situation, even if Rashad White is available. And it's not even looking that way. Kind of sticking with that subject. Thanks to Les Evans for a $10 super chat who says, until the Bucs wake up and replace Rashad White with Sean Tucker, Tucker should be used in special plays similar to the way the Saints use Taysom Hill. Your opinion? I'm respectfully going to disagree with this. I mean, Taysom Hill is used in a special trick play type of situation because Taysom Hill can throw the football. So it gives an option. It's essentially like a wildcat type of thing, like where Taysom Hill can run, but there is the threat that he can pass the football, which kind of keeps the defense, on their P's and Q's, on their guard, because they can't just all flood the line of scrimmage and put all these players in the box, because Hill can still hit you kind of with the passing play if that's how you decide to attack it. Sean Tucker in a special play type of situation, one, it's a big tell that he's in the game. If you're talking about doing a direct snap, well, you could just do that with Bucky Irving and Rashad White.
Yeah.
So essentially, unless Sean Tucker can throw the football, which to my knowledge, I am not aware of how accurate he is throwing the football, he's not really in there to do anything that's like a trick play wise, except for being able to throw the football. Now, if you want to put him in some of the pony package and give a break to one of the other guys, I'm fine with that. Or just give him some rushing attempts. I'm fine with that too. But as far as like trick play, special formation type of stuff, it's not the same to what Taysom Hill does. And Taysom Hill also won't be playing in this game. He's been ruled out.
Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned the pony package, and I'm sure Liam Cohen's thought about this too. You know how we've seen Rashad White be the tailback, the running back behind Baker Mayfield. And we've seen Bucky Irving be that guy that goes in motion or the orbit motion behind. We've seen a couple of things to get Bucky on the move, even some end arounds like we saw in the Detroit game that go to Bucky. Well, Sean Tucker's the fastest running back in this team by far. How about incorporating him on some of those end arounds, get that speed going, and then you've got a bigger body, some tackle breaking ability. Just look no further than that 3-yard kickoff return against the Falcons on Thursday night. I wouldn't be, surprised if Liam Cohen's thought of that as well. Get Sean Tucker the ball on an end around and let him, with his size and his speed, maybe blast through a cornerback trying to make a tackle, and you've got some bigger gains coming, hitting the outside, hitting the Saints defense on the flanks rather than between the tackles. So I'm curious as to what Liam Cohen's going to come up with and how they're going to use Sean Tucker, because certainly, even if it is a game time decision and Rachaad White plays, you're still going to see, I think, probably a reduced pitch count for Rachaad.
And you know what, Scott? Sean Tucker might be the busiest guy in the game on Sunday, because you got to think not from a special package, but special teams perspective.
Yeah.
He's one of the kickoff guys. The other players that were doing punt return was Cameron Johnson, who's out, Trey Palmer, who's out. The third guy was Jalen McMillan, but I don't know if he's going to be returning punts if he's kind of dealing with that hamstring injury. So Sean Tucker might have double duty on special teams with kick returns and punt returns, and then also being RB2 if Rachaad White can't go. So he's going to be the busiest man on Sunday compared to what everyone else is going to be asked to do. So, buy stock now in Sean Tucker, because he's going to be doing a lot.
Agreed. And also, too, one thing Bowles said is they might have to look at Tanner Canu as the practice squad elevation ahead of Ryan Miller, because Canu can also do punt returns. With Trey Palmer being out. So that's something to consider there too. But we'll see. The other injuries, Matt, have we hit on everybody so far? It's been a long list this week.
So a little bit of news we didn't talk about because it kind of happened during the hurricane and everything. Ernest Brown, the defensive tackle that was put on injured reserve right before the start of the season. They've opened up the 21-day window to activate him to the roster. So they ruled him out for the game.
Right.
So he's out. Trey Palmer, a lot of questionables. Gedecke's questionable, but Todd Bowles said today, barring any setbacks, he's going to play. Kancey they have as questionable, but again, Todd Bowles kind of, said that.
Yeah.
We pretty much got everyone. Jordan Whitehead, questionable. I know some people were kind of wondering about him. He had a good 2 days, according to Todd Bowles. So, he's listed as questionable. Let's just go through the Saints real quick. Derek Carr is obviously out. Will Harris is out, the safety with the hamstring injury. Taysom Hill. Ribs is not going to play. Cesar Ruiz, knee out, the offensive lineman. Pete Werner, hamstring. He is out as well. That's a pretty big one for the Saints, the linebacker. And then questionable is defensive end Peyton Turner, running back Kendre Miller, and center/guard Lucas Patrick with a chest injury is questionable.
And Lucas Patrick was the center last week. He's the third string center. So the Saints are down to their third string center, and he's hurt. So, boy, this is a good week to have Calijah Kancey back, because getting pressure in the face of any rookie quarterback up the middle in the A gap, that's the worst place. No quarterback likes that, whether you're Kirk Cousins or whether you are Spencer Rattler making your first NFL start. So that's something to really watch. That interior without Ruiz, certainly Eric McCoy, their best lineman, he's on injured reserve. The center, now they're down to their third center, and he's injured. Boy, a good time to buy stock in Vita Vea, Logan Hall, your leading sacker with 3, and the return of Calijah Kancey. If they can stop Alvin Kamara, those 3 interior defensive linemen could really wreak some havoc, because Kancey, when he came back, Matt, what happened? He got a sack, and he had a hell of a game against Jared Goff and the Lions back in week 6. It's week 6 now, and they're playing the Saints, so look out for Calijah Kancey this week.
Just to answer this from Hezo813 about Rakim Jarrett.
Yeah.
Jarrett actually got asked about today, and he's still on IR. He said he's progressing well. He's got to see him run a little bit more. But yeah, Rakim Jarrett, I'd kind of put that on the back burner, on the back of my mind. But yeah, that'll be big when he can come back. Agree with everything you said about the defensive lineman. And we talked about this a little bit on the Pewter Insider, but with how the Saints were able to limit Chris Jones, the Chiefs' very talented defensive tackle, pass blocking wise, sometimes you get lucky or you have a good game against one guy, but it's very, very difficult, virtually impossible to do that against 3 or 4 interior defensive linemen, or really just the defensive pass rushers to begin with. So Vita seems A-okay from that knee injury a couple weeks ago. Like sometimes a knee injury can, or any injury can linger, and you're maybe not 100%, but he still looks like as dominant as you know, a team could really ask for. And the long-awaited debut of Calijah Kancey, season debut for this year. I think many Bucs fans are going to be excited about that one. I'm pumped to see what he can do. You add in going up against Spencer Rattler, who's a rookie quarterback, and he'll probably be holding onto the ball a little bit too much. This is a great opportunity to show the consistent pressure that the Bucs want to bring, because they've had a lot of sacks over the last 2 games, 10 total. So if the coverage can kind of clean up whatever that mess was on Thursday night, this will be a big game for a lot of marquee players.
I agree. And I think Yaya Diaby is excited to have his partner in crime, Calijah Kancey, back, as those two work exceptionally well together. So don't be surprised if Kancey's return marks an uptick in the sacks for Yaya Diaby. You know, Matt and we've talked about this game for 26 minutes now. And we're going to tell you more about it on Pewter pregame Sunday morning. You guys have gotten up early with us, and we love that on Sunday. You guys are ready to go for game time. Make sure that you catch our live show, Pewter pregame. We're on for about between 40 to 45 minutes typically. That's going to be this Sunday at 9 a.m. You can watch it right here on Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel. It also streams live on X and Facebook at Pewter Report. And we'll also have it on pewterreport.com. So a lot of great ways you can check that out. And here's the great thing. If you missed the live show, it's going to be archived on Pewter Report TV. You can check it out anytime leading up to kickoff. Then at kickoff, what happens, Matt?
Then it's Pewter Game Day. It'll be myself and Josh Capo watching live, giving our live reactions, analysis, all that good stuff with the Bucs Saints game going on. We'll have T. Kraz from The Drive and the Overtime Show joining us around the 4th quarter. And we get to a ton of fan comments and questions and everything else in between. So it's right on our YouTube channel and on pewterreport.com and all of our social media. It's a very fun time. It's even better when it's rivalry games. So definitely encourage everybody to join. And can't wait.
You know, dealing with the hurricane, it made for a long night Wednesday night with the house shaking and the windows rattling and all that stuff here up in Wesley Chapel. We had some like hurricane force wind gusts up to like 90 miles per hour. And Thursday, when I had to get up and do some cleanup, you know what I did, Matt? I went to my refrigerator and I grabbed the nearest can of Celsius and I drank that bad boy. And that thing helps. And it can help you too, right?
Yes, it can. Of course, Celsius is the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. Gets you going, gives you a boost to start your day or get you through the day later on if you're dragging a little bit. So check out some of the newest flavors of Celsius, like the sparkling watermelon lemonade or the sparkling kiwi strawberry. There's tons of great flavors, so if you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, head on over to the Celsius store locator on their website. Punch in your address. They'll tell you the closest place where you could pick one up. Could be a Walmart, health and fitness store, a Publix, a King Cullen, a Walbams, Stop and Shop, or your bodega.
Bodega.
And once you keep going to your bodega and you know you love Celsius and you want more, that's when you go to Amazon, do the subscribe and save. You can get Celsius in bulk. I recommend getting the variety pack because variety is the spice of life. And have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. Got a couple super chats to get to. Thank you to Jamel Surley for this $1.99 super chat, who says, has the Bucs rush defense actually been good this year? It's been tough to tell. That is a good question.
Yeah, it is.
at times it's been really good, and then it kind of leaks out a little bit. Now, stopping the run has been a staple of Todd Bowles and how he
Yeah.
runs the defense. So overall, I'm confident in what it can accomplish, but it's been a little up and down.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is when you look at the yards per game allowed, right? Tampa Bay has been okay. They've allowed 119 yards per game. It's 16th in the league. That's not ideal. That's not where Todd Bowles wants it to be. You go back to that Broncos game, right? They had 136 yards because they had a big lead, and Tampa Bay couldn't do anything offensively or defensively in that game. So they certainly have not been as stout as Todd Bowles wants them to be or needs them to be. Then you look at what they were able to do against Atlanta. Atlanta didn't rush for 100 yards, I don't think. But why would you throw the ball, or why would you run the ball when you could throw the ball at ease and at will against this Todd Bowles defense? So Tampa Bay's pass defense, in terms of the yards allowed, is in the toilet. It's the, I believe it's the worst in the league. It probably has to be after that debacle on Thursday night. Let's get a quick look here, and it's not the worst. It's 28th, 258.4 yards allowed per game. So whatever it was before then, before that Falcons game, the Bucs have plummeted in terms of the ranking. They're in the bottom, 5 or so for the league. And that's got to be the thing here, because the best thing to do if you're a rookie quarterback to ease your way into your first start, turn around and hand the ball off, right? That's the easy thing. Let Alvin Kamara do the heavy lifting. And Kamara has had a resurgence this year. He's averaging just under 5 yards per carry. He's got 5 rushing touchdowns, a receiving touchdown, 388 yards. So he has really kind of come on, and they fed him the ball a lot more. That's something Todd Bowles talked about earlier this week. And then the other thing too is you got to look at what he can do in terms of helping Spencer Rattler in his first start. The screen game, that's always been a big part of the Saints' attack against Todd Bowles' defense, is letting all those blitz pressures come and then throwing it out into the flat and allowing that pressure to essentially be foiled with screen passes. So look for Alvin Kamara on the screen. The other thing too is, and Dennis Allen, even though he's the defensive coordinator, he's a very good strategist, and I'm sure he had a hand in Juwan Johnson having 90 yards receiving and a touchdown last year. Remember the Saints tight end in Week 17 at Raymond James Stadium, when the Bucs, all they had to do was beat the Saints and capture another NFC South title. Juwan Johnson kind of came out of nowhere and really helped the Saints beat the Buccaneers. And so, to me, that's something you really have to be concerned about. Yes, Todd Bowles doesn't want those vertical shots going over his defense's head to Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave. And that's why Spencer Rattler is starting this week, because he's got more of a live arm to make that happen and make that Clint Kubiak offense click. Because let's face it, Tampa Bay is putting up 25 points per game. They're fast in terms of putting points on the board. The Saints are going to have to be able to keep up. But don't sleep on the fact that Alvin Kamara underneath can hurt the Bucs, as well as Juwan Johnson in the middle of the field. And of course, Matt, that's where the Bucs defense was exploited in Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the Bucs stopping the run, it reminds me of a couple of years, like back when they won the Super Bowl in 2020 and when they were great in 2021. Like, nobody was running the football at all on Tampa Bay, to the point where, like, teams like the Cowboys, when they played the Bucs, would just say, we're not going to run it, and our run game is going to be those short 3-4 yard passes. And I think that's what the Falcons kind of wanted to start with,
right,
against the Bucs, or when they kind of figured out that they just weren't going to get it done running the football. And then those short 4 to 5 yard plays ended up being 8 to 9 yard plays on first down. And then they just, never ran the ball after. And kind of like what we talked about, there's no point in throwing the ball if the Bucs can't defend the pass coverage. So, yeah, I'm sure that the Saints are going to want to run the football.
Yeah.
But it really just comes down to, will Todd Bowles learn his lesson? Because they cannot once again just play everybody back and let Spencer Rattler, of all people, and I know he can throw it deep.
Yeah.
But I don't care who you are. If you're an NFL quarterback, you can be the fifth string quarterback.
Yeah.
If you got a guy that's 5 yards open down the field, like,
Mhm.
and just standing there being like, hey,
Yeah.
hey, I'm open, you're going to hit him and you're going to find him. So
That's what Bo Nix did successfully back in week
Yeah.
3 to really foil the Buccaneers as they played that soft zone coverage and didn't play tight. And when the Buccaneers have good pressure, which they're getting now, they didn't have that against the Broncos, but the last couple of games, they've had really good pressure in terms of sacks, quarterback hits, hurries, all those things. But the difference is you got to have that coverage too. It's got to be tight to be able to force the quarterback to hang on to that ball. So instead of just getting a pressure, you get a sack and maybe a sack fumble.
Yeah, we'll see. Thanks to Zap Brannigan for this $5 super chat who says, what's up, Pewter people? What quarter are we expecting Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans to be ejected? Go Bucs. Yep, it's that time of the season where Bucs play the Saints and Mike has to be asked about his fight with Marshawn Lattimore. But, in fairness, the fact that there was a round 2, like if people were still talking about Mike and Marshawn Lattimore when Jameis was the quarterback, and that happened like however long ago it was now. I think at that point it's like, all right, we're beating a dead horse. Like, let's put it to rest. Yeah, they fought back in the day. But the fact that it happened like so recently, just a couple of seasons ago, I get it. But Mike spoke about it. He's like, yeah, I'm more mature now. Like, I just want to win. And yeah, I play with fire. But if I'm getting ejected, like, that doesn't help our team win. So never say never, but I don't think there's going to be like a major type of blow up in this game. But who knows? I could be wrong. I mean, tempers do tend to flare when it's Bucs versus Saints. I don't see like a huge pushing and shoving type of thing going on.
I don't either, unless Lattimore's really getting beaten. And I think at age 31, I think Mike Evans is a better player right now than Lattimore, who's younger, but has dealt with some injuries, and sometimes those injuries can accumulate and take a little bit out of your game. We saw that firsthand last year with Carlton Davis.
Yeah.
He's, I think he's 27, 28. He's not like, done for yet, but he's just not the same player that he was because those injuries just kind of stack and pile up. So if Mike is having his way, I can see Marshawn Lattimore almost trying to, like wrestling, right? Like talk some crap and get you to get out of your game, right? Where he provokes Evans because he can't beat him on the field, right? So I think that could be kind of like that last resort strategy that Lattimore has. But we talked a little bit about it on Tuesday. It just bears repeating because as much as that might be kind of the marquee matchup, the headliner, if you will. Sometimes, Matt, you go to a concert and you're like, wow, who's that opening act? Like, man, that undercard, that was really good, I'm here to see the headliner, but man, these guys rock. Well, that's Alontae Taylor, and that's Chris Godwin. Those guys are going to be seeing a lot of each other in this game. And Alontae Taylor, still the Saints' leading sacker this year at 3.5. He had 3 sacks in week 1 against Bryce Young, and he is a tough physical player, kind of in the same mold as C.J. Gardner-Johnson, just better in coverage than Gardner-Johnson used to be when he played for the Saints, and ended up hurting Chris Godwin in that December game back in 2021. So this is going to be a really good matchup, not just Evans and Lattimore, but Godwin and Taylor. And that's why we kind of talked about it on the Insider today. That third wide receiver, whether it is Jalen McMillan, Sterling Shepard, they're going to have to really get open and present themselves as a target. Saints actually have 3 good cornerbacks. You've got Paulson Adebo, who leads the team, pass breakups, has 2 interceptions on the year. And the guy we haven't talked about, Tyrann Mathieu, still around as well. So this Saints secondary is no joke. It's going to be a very interesting game to see how Liam Cohen really uses his receivers, how he deploys them, what type of routes they run, and also what type of coverages they face.
And I think that speaks as well to a degree as to why they've been so good defensively in the red zone. They're not allowing a lot of touchdowns because, Mathieu and Gardner-Johnson, they're kind of older corners at this point. But when you're down in the red zone, you don't have to cover as much ground. You don't have to run as far. So
that's right.
Now you're just kind of, focusing on the coverage more than speed and things of that nature.
Yeah.
I'm staying away from the props with Chris Godwin this week because I just it's a great matchup with Delonte Taylor, but I just don't know if Godwin is going to continue for this game specifically, continue to be really the driving force of this Buccaneers offense, or if they are truly going to have to go the route of McMillan, Sterling Shepard. I mean, Cade Otton seems to always have a moment against the Saints for whatever reason. He tends to have something going on, and then we'll see how much Bucky Irving can provide as a receiver in the passing game, or Sean Tucker, with the understanding that Rachaad White likely isn't going to play. We've seen in the past with these games against the Saints, it's not always the star that has the big moment. I mean, you can go back to Rashad Perryman's touchdown in 2022 when the Bucs won 20-10. It was Jamel Dean getting a couple of pick sixes off of Jameis Winston. I know Jamel Dean's kind of a star on defense, but you're not relying on him to get a pick six to kind of seal away a game. Last year, the big turnovers, I think, was kind of the biggest story.
Yeah.
Devin Tompkins had a touchdown in that game, so I think specifically for the Saints, just the way that these teams know each other, the way that it's such a slugfest at times, it might be Cade Otton or Shepard or McMillan that if the Bucs win, end up being kind of the deciding factor as to why the
better
Bucs
supporting cast, maybe.
Sure.
We have a tremendous supporting cast for sure, and that's our Pewter Platinum members who get the shout out every single show. Of course, Dave Anderson, Scotty J, Noah Parr, Rathel Gordon, and Scott Federico. Thank you so much for your continued support as Pewter Platinum members, and we appreciate all of our Pewter Premier members, as well as our Pewter Pro and Pewter People members as well. I did drop a new video that our Pewter Pro, Premier, and Platinum members can view right now on YouTube. Not right now during the show, but at 5 o'clock you can check it out. It's a new Pewter Pulse video. I'll have that on pewterreport.com shortly after this. We'll have our Pewter predictions up as well in just a little bit and see if any of us picked the Saints to beat the Buccaneers. So stay tuned for that at 5 o'clock at pewterreport.com. Speaking of YouTube channel members, we have a new one, Matt.
We do. Thank you to Canal Alatorio for becoming a Pewter Report YouTube channel member. We greatly appreciate the support, and welcome to Pewter Report TV and all that comes with it. So thank you so much. And thank you to Jonas Correa for this $4.99 super chat. As Jonas says, I don't think any team has had a harder schedule than the Bucs. Washington and Denver look like surprising teams. Ian getting any easier? It ain't getting any easier until the bye. Yeah, that's true. But after the bye, I don't want to exactly say it's smooth sailing, but it's looking pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good, as Larry David once said. After the bye, and you know what? I don't know. The Falcons have had a pretty tough beginning to the schedule. They had to play the Chiefs. The Bucs will play the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I don't buy as much the whole this team's playing a first place schedule or whatever.
Yeah.
It only means 2 games are different.
I agree.
The Falcons and the Saints, who really cares about the Panthers right now? No disrespect to Dave Canales, but they're all playing the Chiefs, they're all playing the Chargers, they're all playing the Cowboys. That doesn't change. That doesn't make a difference. You're still playing the divisions. It's a 1 or 2 game difference with the schedule. So the way it lined up, it's a little tough right now. But if they can get through it, they have a good setup for the latter half of the season. And that's kind of what you want, right?
It's interesting because Washington, since the Bucs beat them, they haven't lost a game. Since the Broncos came in and beat the Buccaneers in Tampa, they haven't lost a game either, right? They went head-to-head with the Jets and went up there in New York, played a role in Robert Saleh's probable departure, right, from there, and beat Aaron Rodgers head-to-head. Then they have a big win over the Raiders last week. So those 2 supposed easy games now looking a little tougher. It makes the Bucs win over Jaden Daniels more impressive now, and makes maybe that loss to the Broncos a little bit more forgivable. The effort was not forgivable, but the outcome of the game, certainly might be. But who always has great effort, Matt, when it comes to food and football? That is Walk-Ons, one of our Pewter Report sponsors do a great job with their menu. And here's Drew Brees to tell you all about it.
Game day at Walk-Ons is just different. And it starts with the way our teammates prep each dish from our scratch menu. No shortcuts. We are hand cutting every single mozzarella log straight from the block. Hand peeling, stuffing, and bacon wrapping each voodoo shrimp. Hand carving ribeyes for our steaks and po' boys. And hand slicing, then tossing our boneless wings in our house-made sauces. With wall-to-wall TVs and food like this, why would you want to watch anywhere else? That's game day. The Walk-Ons way.
And it's Friday. It means happy hour still going on till 6 o'clock. So if you're getting ready to leave work and you're looking for a place to go to enjoy happy hour, make it be Walk-Ons. $3 happy hour pours, $3.99 domestic pints, $4 house wines, $5.49 22-ounce domestic drafts, a ton of great food specials that help you fight inflation. And if you miss happy hour today, that's okay. They have happy hour back on Mondays from 3 p.m. to close. So it's a great place to watch the Monday night game. Tuesdays, all-day happy hour. And keep in mind, we get the weekend coming up with football on tap, as well as Bud Light, Michelob Ultra, and Budweiser. $4.49 specials. Those are pints. And then 22-ounce pours, $5.99 on Saturdays and Sundays. So get in there and watch your college football on Saturdays and your pro games on Sunday. You can also enjoy $5 Heineken Silver 12-ounce cans and $5 neutrals. 3 locations to serve you. Wesley Chapel in the Lutz area up here by my neck of the woods. Down there by Matty Matera and the stadium at the Midtown Tampa location, and also at the Lakeland location as well. You can log on to walkons.com for menu and driving directions and all the great specials they have, Matt.
Yeah, make sure you check it out. Great spot, even better food and drink offerings. So, yeah, check out Walk-Ons. Big fan. Big fan of Super Chats as well. Thank you to Paul Morales for this $1.99 Super Chat, who says, just hopping on. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Why not go and get Hunter Renfrow as wide receiver 3?
I think right now they like the receivers. They like Trey Palmer when he's healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. They like Jalen McMillan, who they spent a 3rd-round pick on. They like Sterling Shepard, who they brought up from the practice squad, scored a touchdown against the Falcons. So they like their guys. They also like Raheem Jarrett, who is on the injured reserve. So, yeah. I think that's the biggest thing is these guys have been to camp. They know the system. They have familiarity with Baker Mayfield. And so the Bucs have always been one to kind of turn inward to their team and their practice squad rather than hit the streets for signings of free agents.
Yeah, I agree with what Bry had to say here. He says because they aren't signing new players for temporary needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the concussion thing with Palmer is tough because it's a serious injury that you never know how quickly people will recover from. I mean, we're just talking about Luke Gedeke just getting back.
Yeah.
So we don't know with Trey Palmer. But yeah, I mean, Jarrett seems like he's going to be back sooner rather than later based on what Bowles had to say today. McMillan just returned. Yeah, it's a hamstring injury, and it's a little finicky when it comes to that injury specifically. But yeah, I guess to sum it all up, like you said, they have the talent. It's just, these guys aren't injured for crazy long term. It's just a couple of bumps in the road that you kind of got to be able to get through and avoid for the time being.
Yeah, I will say one thing. We're not sure about Trey Palmer coming back for the next game against the Ravens, but I do know that he is scheduled to be on the Bucs cruise, and he will be there along with a lot of Tampa Bay players.
We're on the Bucs cruise. Of course, we're playing pool volleyball.
Hey, we on the Bucs cruise, of course. Anytime I say Tampa, they will say Bay. Tampa!
Hey! Tampa!
We're on the Bucs cruise. Of course, I've got my Super Bowl 37 hardware. What do you think?
We're on the Bucs cruise, and of course we had a pirate night. Arr! Arr!
That's right. Trey Palmer, Yaya Diaby, Luke Gedeke, Mike Allstott, Brad Johnson, some of your Super Bowl champions from yesteryear. Derek Brooks will be there in Key West. Make sure you're on the Bucs cruise. It starts in Fort Lauderdale with a stop in Key West, and then on to Bimini, Bahamas, and then back to Fort Lauderdale. This all takes place March 7th through 10th, 2025. Good news is that's not hurricane season, so make sure that you're on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers cruise. Join the Pewter Report staff, and gosh, they had, I think, 15 Buccaneer players last year. They're expecting even more this year. It's a great time. J.C. Allen tells me they have a whiskey bar. Also, Nathan Elliott, who's already signed up for a cruise. I know a lot of you have. If you haven't, this would be a great time for a lot of you Pewter Report community members to meet each other on the cruise, have some drinks, have some fun, meet some Bucs players. Again, 7th through 10th, March 2025. Log on to TampaBayBucsCruise.com. They still have some cabins available. Reserve yours today. Give them a call at 1-800-975-7112. All right, Matt. What are your thoughts about this game here? We've seen the injury report. It's long.
Yeah.
I loved your whack-a-mole reference in terms of
Thank you.
guys are on the list now, like Graham Barton not playing, Rashad White probably doubtful for the game. But then they do get some guys, Calijah Kancey back, hopefully Antoine Winfield Jr. and Jordan Whitehead, Luke Gedeke. I think there's enough here to beat the Saints. I'm a little worried about this game because the Saints are desperate. They need this win. Losing 4 in a row, I think, would really put Dennis Allen on the hot seat. And just when you think the Buccaneers are going to beat the Saints, and usually it happens in Tampa of all places, but last year, remember, we all thought the Bucs were going to win the NFC South, beat the Saints. They were on this big-time roll. They had all the momentum. And Dennis Allen's team just beat the Buccaneers up in the trenches on both sides of the ball, on defense, on offense. I think they jumped out to a 20-0 lead. They ended up winning 23-13, I think, but a lot of those scores were at the end of the game. Sometimes the most dangerous animal is one that's cornered, and feels threatened. And, man, that's where the Saints are right now. I know they've got Spencer Rattler as a quarterback, so maybe if you're Tampa Bay, you go in with the mindset of, gosh, I mean, we're not going to get a better shot at beating the Saints than right here, right now, without Derek Carr. But Dennis Allen, he's come through with a couple of defensive gems against this Bucs offense, whether he was the coordinator under Sean Payton or when he was the head coach.
Yeah, I don't like that the Bucs are a favorite in this game. I'm not gonna give a score prediction or anything like that, because you can read that on our Pewter predictions that are coming out soon. But I do think this is going to be a close game, despite the fact that Spencer Rattler is making his NFL debut. I have a lot of respect for the Saints defense. I think even though they get older, they just seem to still bring it game in and game out. So I think it's going to be a game where both offenses struggle. I do expect a bounce back from the Bucs on the defensive side, especially with Calijah Kancey coming back. And if Antoine Winfield Jr. is in the mix, that is super important. But I think it's going to come down to red zone efficiency, who can kind of make the big play, because I think both defenses are going to be rocking and rolling. I don't foresee the Bucs offense kind of having the same success that they had against the Eagles, and even to a degree against the Falcons. They still scored over 30 points. So I think it's going to be a really close, hard-fought game. And, hopefully the defense for the Bucs can prevail, or at least kind of get in the head of Spencer Rattler and throw him off from the beginning. But I don't know. I just don't see it that way. Bucs versus Saints is never easy. It's never easy, despite how good or bad these teams are. It just that's just the way it goes in this divisional matchup.
I like what Steven Stansfield says here. That this is really interesting, because the ramifications of this game could really be catastrophic for New Orleans. If we beat NOLA, maybe the Saints start their rebuild, right? Because you have a couple of weeks prior to the trade deadline. The problem is a lot of the Saints players, a lot of their better players are old players, like Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, Cam Jordan, I think, is past his prime, right? Marshawn Lattimore. It's difficult. If you're going to try to fire sale some of these guys and trade them away, you're not going to get a whole bunch for high-priced old veterans. And then the young guys, do you want to give away a Rashid Shaheed or a Chris Olave, right? I don't think you do. But, how much does Alvin Kamara, I mean, he's having a good year. How much could he fetch? I'm not sure. But as Fuku Karab says, the Saints are set to be $88 million over the cap next year, Matt.
Yeah, but they do this every year, right? It's like, oh my God, they're in salary cap hell. How are they ever going to get out of it? And then they kind of like re-sign the same guys. They might lose one or two. And then they end up getting under the cap with like all the same players and the same defense and everything like that. I don't know how they do it, but eventually, we talk a lot about kicking the can down the road. The Bucs have done that with, certain details of their own contract. Eventually, the chicken's got to come home to roost for the Saints with all of this money that they're giving to older veteran players. At the same time, I understand if the Bucs beat the Saints, that's quite the losing streak for New Orleans. But did the Bucs just have that same losing streak last year, like 6 or 7, and they're still able to battle back? I think the difference is the NFC South is stronger this year than it has been over the previous 2 seasons, which doesn't help them. But I understand where you're coming from, and I think that could happen with a couple of more losses, but it's still a little too early to say that they're going to start the rebuild unless Derek Carr is going to be out for like a very, very long time. Because remember, he's got a huge contract too. So that quarterback ain't going anywhere.
That's
and if you have in what you think is a sufficient quarterback, well, you got to try to, win while you have him.
Yeah.
Got 2 more super chats to get to. Thanks to Marcos for this $4.99 super chat, who says, I genuinely think between Helene, Milton, a tough loss at Atlanta, a win here would make the Bucs the grittiest team.
I agree.
In the NFL.
Well said.
I will put my stamp of approval on that one. There's
well said. Thank you, Marcus.
And Architect 79, thanks for the $4.99 super chat, says, guys, does the MLB depth cap the ceiling on the the middle linebacker depth cap the ceiling on the Bucs postseason aspirations? Also, how does Light attack the position this offseason?
Well, I think you need to get another inside linebacker for sure, right? Because KJ Britt he'll be a free agent. I'm not sure if he resigns or not. Levante David may or may not return. He's a free agent as well. Be 35 next year. Servassier Dennis, as much as the team likes him, they love him when he's on the field, but he's been so banged up. He's got the shoulder injury that might require surgery. So you have to shore up that position for sure. You have to add another inside linebacker. And we'll see what J.J. Russell can do and see if he can rotate in there and be a platoon guy with KJ Britt. The Buccaneers, you weren't sure about life after either Devin White or Levante David. Then KJ Britt kind of burst on the scene at the end of last year. So we'll see what they have in Antonio Greer as well. They have a couple of young guys that will get a look in Russell and Greer, and they'll make some evaluations as to, do they have a future on the Buccaneers, and is it a depth player or potential starter? So we'll see. I know one thing is for sure, Matt, when it comes to depth, my depth is not very good in my Bet US account right now because I've made some really bad bets, unfortunately. But I'm going to be restocking and firing away again with my bets this weekend in college and pro football. Make sure that you check out Matt Matera's Pewter Picks and Prop Show on Pewter Report TV. That's coming up in a little bit here. But make sure that you also do your bets at Bet US, where they give you 125% bonus in your first 3 deposits. That's right, not just one, but your first 3 deposits plus 10% gambler insurance. Make sure you use the promo code Pewter when you sign up to activate that bonus. Again, you can do that at Bet US for all of your sportsbook needs, whether it's college football, pro football, hockey is getting started up, basketball will be here before you know it. The World Series hunt is on right now in baseball, UFC fights, a lot of action going on. Make sure you do all of your sportsbook gaming at BetUS and use promo code Pewter when you do.
Yeah, great week of college football coming up tonight and really tomorrow. So check out BetUS. And, of course, check out the Pewter pregame show. Myself and Scott will be on at 9 o'clock right on our YouTube channel. And the Pewter Game Day show with myself and Josh Capo is at 1 o'clock. See us react live to everything happening in the game. And, of course, please follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. So that's going to do it for us on today's show. Appreciate everybody for coming out on a Friday edition.
Thank you very much.
And watching us. So for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you on Sunday for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Stay safe, everyone. Peace out.
Stay safe. Out.